everyone, and welcome to the fourth webinar organized by MRO Business Today. Our webinar is based on technologies to boost MRO efficiencies in the post-COVID-19 phase. For this, our speakers today are, let me introduce our speakers to you. Arnold Brawley, he is the Digital Solutions and Blockchains Lead at CETA. Hello, Arnold.
Hello, hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone.
Chris Fabry, who's the founder and CEO at Sky Republic. Hi, Chris.
Hi, everybody.
Next, we have Rohit Tomar, who's the head of finance department and director of financial planning and analysis at Vietjet Air. Most
Hi,
of
everyone.
you have attended our last webinar. Yeah, Rohit was here as our last speaker also. So welcome back, Rohit.
Thanks, Swati.
We have Shane Tinjay with us, who's the general manager at POCO. Hi, Shane, welcome.
Hello there, thanks very much. It's a good first introduction.
And we have Kiran Prakash, who's the associate vice president at Real Variable.
Hi, Swati. Good evening. And hello, everyone.
A warm welcome to all of my speakers. Now, before we start with the webinar, I'll quickly run through with a few ground rules, which are important, but I'll be very short. Only the speakers will be visible and audible to all the registered participants at all times. Participants can post their questions in the Q&A tab, which is given below. Kindly mention your name and the name of your company when you post the questions. Please specify the name of the speaker to whom your question is addressed so that it will be easier for us to answer them. And we'll try and answer all your questions during the course of the discussion, of course. Before we start, I would also like to add that we have round about 216 registered participants from across the globe who will be attending this webinar today. A warm welcome to all of my participants also. Technology. The term itself is very self-explanatory currently. Man has made use of technology in practically all walks of life to be more efficient and more successful. Today, the time has come when we all are bracing one of the worst pandemics of the century. Everyone is trying to find a new way or a new solution to fight this pandemic and survive in this crisis. The aviation MRO industry, which has taken a very big hit in this COVID-19 phase, has put up till now a very brave front. MRO industry is blessed with some of the marvelous technological tools like artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain, 3D printing, and much more. Many industries are currently making use of these technologies to help and improve their efficiency. Today, let's find out in our discussion how these industries are making use of this technology for improved efficiency in their functions. With this, I open the floor to discussion, and my first open question is the pre-COVID, COVID, and the post-COVID phase. How do you all see the MRO industry embracing this technology for their own growth? Let's start with Arnold.
All right, so actually, as everybody knows, the COVID has shown a really great challenge for everyone. As you remember, on the pre-COVID time, we had our market prediction of aircraft pretty steady with 20,000 of aircraft over the next 10 years, which are in a plan. And of course, what we see due to the COVID effect is a radical freeze on all unnecessary expenditure. We see as well the aircraft production dropping by less than 0.5% that previous estimates. And I get that from Oliver Whiteman perspective. So of course, the demand for MRO services, which is primarily driven by size, flight activity of the global fleet, is impacted. So, and assuming that you have a lot, 70%, I guess, of the global fleet, which is today grounded. So MRO providers, part providers are suffering clearly, and that's something that we would see even with our partners and in the industry overall. Also, calendar time-based maintenance remains, but most of the flight hours, flight asset links maintenance are stopped. And today, we imagine that the recovery would depend. Today, it's a bit unknown. Airlines are running out of liquidity, and we don't know what would happen in. Some maybe would have bankruptcies, nationalization, and whatever, which can cause some very big change in the MRO. But yeah, so a lot of things that we see would impact the recovery on the business, and mostly yes on the MRO business. Whether it will be a V curve, U curve, or whatever. But one thing which seems, now we'll stop that, pretty clear is that there were a big stress on getting part at the beginning, Now it seems that there is some capacities. Some of the aircraft have been grounded, disassembled for further MRO operations. Some workshop will definitely release their parts before getting back to normal. So yeah, it will be complicated, but last but not least, I guess the MRO spend, which is now forecasted for 2020, is half of what it used to be. I think it's around $43 billion compared to the 91 billion in 2020 initially. So yeah, tough times, but we see the light out of the tunnel, of course.
All right, Shane, what's your view on this?
Well, I tend to agree with quite a lot of what Arno said. I understand that the industry is going to take a massive hit at this moment in time, and especially in the MRO side of it, because it's the last piece of the jigsaw puzzle on a lot of these things. But there is light at the end of the tunnel. I get advertising every day that says various different people are starting to fly. Even just before we got on the conference, the Swiss International started to fly. So I think the industry and the MRO side of it needs to be prepared to be able to go into this new vision, this new light, where it's going to be an awful lot of cost management. You've got to get the aircraft turned around a lot quicker. You've got to get the aircraft turned around a lot cheaper. So the technology tools that are going to be available to us really need to be picked up and used so that we can manage some of the risk, we can give a level more efficiency. And in the new world, we are very quickly up to pace without spending too much money. So I think that there is an awful lot of work to be done during this period of time to make sure that those who have the ability to use data, to use different managements, are prepared and can come out of it and survive in the new world. So, you know, technology is going to be a key part of all of that type of stuff.
But that's for the companies, you know, who are already existingly using those technologies. What about, there are a lot of MRO shops and companies who are not so well versed with technology. What about them? How do you think will they survive this crisis?
I think that they will survive to a degree at the bottom end of it all, where they're unsophisticated, they're fairly unsophisticated customer. They don't have business volumes that are going to be high enough to be able to impact it. But I think there is technology, there is data usage for that type of operator that can be adopted fairly quickly. And I don't like to go straight into the Perco advertising, but the tool suite that we're able to offer, the data analytics that we're able to offer, and the way that we can manage an awful lot of the risk to drive some of the business decisions fairly quickly, are all about being there available for those types of operators and those types of MRO. So I think there's a place for everybody, and I think there is a technology that everybody can embrace.
Of course. Rohit, can we have your views on this?
Well, you have in both the views previously are sort of in line with what we are seeing as going forward. But in my personal view, I think what we are going to see is this. If I break down the investment in technology that has been done by MROs over the last decade, those investments were towards improving the efficiency of operations within the MRO business. So it was very focused, when you talk about technology from an MRO perspective, it was very focused on improving the efficiency and the output and the productivity of labor and the materials that were being used. And anything which was over and beyond in terms of investment in technology for MRO was always with the aim of providing a competitive advantage. Okay, so one MRO can provide a service which is much sort of gives a value proposition to a customer as compared to a different MRO. And obviously that was driven by an underlying principle, whether the customer would be ready to pay the kind of premium for that kind of service. I think post-COVID, the biggest change that is going to happen is technology investment in MRO is no more going to be important to drive value. Investment in technology is going to be driven by sustainability. You need to invest in technology to sustain, not to innovate. Up till now, we've always talked about investment in technology to innovate. That's no more the case. Post-COVID, you need to invest in technology to sustain what you are. We've already seen Airbus delivering the first contactless aircraft delivery. There are so many aspects of it, whether you talk about aircraft redeliveries, which are handled by MROs. There is a lot of opportunity which is going to be where technology investments are going to be driven. I think the biggest area where sort of the next phase of MRO investment is going to be not just technology investment within to improve their operations, but technology investment to become a B2B integrated service with their airline partner. It is not something that I just want to know, how many parts have been received in the inventory, just in time movement of my inventory. That's like basics. That's like hygiene factors in the new age MRO. But you need to be able to invest in technology which is going to be far more advanced, providing what I said previously in the previous one, a value addition, which is in terms of maintenance management service providers, and be able to connect with the customer directly. So I think the next set of technologies, either driven by things like blockchain for aircraft documentations, for aircraft redelivery procedures, or having an underwritten sort of an exchange where the bays are what are used as a platform of an exchange for constant feedback to an airline to have more dynamic planning of its capacity or its aircraft. I think those are the areas where the new technologies are, or the new investment is really going to be driven.
Wow, technology for sustainability, rightly put, Rohit, wonderfully put in fact. Yes, Arnold, you want to have a word on that?
Hello? Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
I just wanted to add a comment, a quick comment, that I think that definitely everyone will be cautious about investments. So at every company level, the cash will be king, protecting cash position. Our partners are going to tremendous complex situation right now. And definitely cash will be key to survive. I think there will be some area where they would be able to invest in medium term, an area, of course, such as the supply chain and the sourcing on the part, because we saw that it was one of the big problems which they were facing, finding alternative vendors, maybe diversifying their source, because it was something which, at least what we heard from our close partners, was really a real problem. So yeah, there may be some area to optimize still, or at least to revamp or restructure some of the process, and possibly supply chain might be a new one of those.
All right, Chris, your opening comments on this.
I think it's all about the good old digital transformation, and all of this is just accelerating what's going on. I think post-COVID is maybe very far. So COVID mitigation is still to be on the agenda. How do you connect remote workers? How do you have collaborative tools? How do you suppress paper? Is going to be there. And then the point that was mentioned about better connecting to the ecosystem, which obviously it can be driven by blockchain, is how do I differentiate, right? How can I end up the crisis in a better shape than my competitors? I think there are studies that shows that if you can keep innovation and investment during crisis, usually you get a huge advantage when you get out. So it's not easy to do because of cash, of course, but everybody will use that. We try to find projects where you can have a double kill two birds with one stone. How can I operate safer during COVID? Contactless, paperless, and stuff like that, and how that gives me a competitive advantage later on SLAs, providing better SLAs to my customers, being tied to their demand, anticipating, predicting maintenance and stuff like that. So yes, it's good old digital transformation, but when everybody lives well, you can have some defects and it's okay. But now that everybody is on the hook, you have to get better. There's no choice.
Ah, that's right. Kiran, let's have your opening comments on this. Competitive advantage and paperless, everyone going paperless.
Yes, I think I agree with all the panelists, and I personally feel that blockchain technology is really the way forward as far as contactless, technology is concerned, because blockchain at the end of the day, with the power of distributed ledger technology, it acts as a abstraction layer on top of your existing ERP systems. So it has the power to actually pull the data as per the requirements of the stakeholders in the value chain, and publish the data to whomever is required with the correct access. So blockchain is really key as far as I'm concerned, as far as multi-party collaboration is concerned in aviation MRO sector, because all the systems today, all the operators today have well matured ERP systems and maintenance systems in place. The benefit of blockchain is just to ensure that the transactions between multi-parties is handled in a more efficient and immutable and encrypted and a trustworthy way. So that is where blockchain comes into picture. Other technologies, I think data analytics, big data, additive manufacturing and all pretty much is there. And I think there will be much more, improvised focus on these technologies because of the current COVID scenario. I would like to just bring up one LinkedIn post which I happened to see a few days back. So, it is a very interesting post and has a very deep meaning. So the question, it was a Q&A post, and the post read like this: who drove the digital transformation of your company? The answers to this were CEO, CTO, and third one was COVID-19. So undoubtedly COVID-19 was the right answer for this question. And I think it is very relevant in our context and across the industries, that COVID-19 has nudged the industries to have a look at technology and embrace digital technologies in a much more efficient and promising way.
Yes, sir. Shane, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
I think everybody's got great points and great values. One of the things I would say across that, I don't think you're going to get the sale of many new ERP systems in the next 2 or 3 years. I think SAP sales on some of their systems are going to go completely. So I think anything that people are going to be doing is going to be on top of that to create a higher level of efficiency with the tools that they have at this moment in time. Blockchain is one, data analytics, predictive analysis, predictive maintenance are all going to be part of that. And it's a question of building up the tool suite that we're all going to need to be able to go forward after COVID with the tools that we have in place. You can say that investment's been done and dusted. There's very few people going to buy a large system. It's all of these systems that add on top of it all that I'm sure the panelists around have access to and understanding of, and we can talk about them as we go through the conference. Okay.
All right. Yeah. Arnold, you had something to say to this. I saw you raising your hand a while back.
Me? No. I was reading some Q&A question actually.
All right. I have a question which is coming in from Girish Deshmukh. He was with GMR very recently. If the aircraft is being returned to lessors, would it not increase the work for MROs? Rohit, would you like to take that question?
Thanks. It's an interesting question because I think the challenge is going to be who is going to be really driving that work for the end of or the aircraft redelivery. If you're looking at the fact that airlines would be the primary drivers of these aircrafts being returned back, then I would suggest that yes, there would definitely be a ramp up in the MRO work in the coming months. I think the real challenge is going to be within the fact whether when the airline is trying to return back, the condition of the airline is also not that great, so they wouldn't want to put that much amount of cash into getting the aircraft sort of repaired and handed over back to the lessor. So there's always going to be a trade-off. There's going to be a trade-off between the costs. So it would depend on a lot of factors. For the example, how old the aircraft is, how much maintenance reserve the aircraft currently has, how much can they really claim out of it, what are the kind of return conditions on the aircraft, and that would really drive sort of the work that is going to happen. There might be times where it would be preferable to sort of just take the aircraft and park it for another 6 months rather than actually sending it to the MRO, because at any given point of time, the supply demand is obviously going to create a price point. Like for example, today, if you want to send the aircraft to any sort of an MRO within the Asia region, it's difficult to get a slot. So the prices are being driven high. And once it reaches a point where it makes sense to just park the aircraft, I mean, they would do it. And one of the things that we are seeing in COVID is that airlines and lessors are taking bold decisions. They are taking decisions which probably would not have been thought of, let's say, in the previous financial crisis, where it was sort of a gentleman's agreement. There was a contract that no, I need to return the aircraft in a proper shape. Today, with the advent of low-cost carriers, the sort of focus is very fixed. How much money does it take me? Do I need to spend the money? Am I wasting the money, or just let the aircraft sit? I don't care. So I think that has changed the decision making in maintenance significantly. So even if there are aircraft redeliveries that happen, it might not necessarily get 100% transformed into MRO work, because it would depend on a lot of factors in terms of the age of the aircraft and the lessor. So if you're an MRO, your best client today is a lessor than an airline.
All right. If we look at the volume ramp up, there's a question coming in for Chris about the volume ramp up. Is volume ramp up relevant in coming future in MROs as it was in pre-COVID phase?
I'm very honored to be picked up for that question, but I'm not sure I have the answer. I'm the tech guy having on this. It's a key question, right? I think cargo seems to have some good traction, but the passenger side, I mean, for how long, when it will come back, people need to travel, but so I guess it will, but.
All right, I'll throw a blockchain question to you. How do you think blockchain will help in the revival of aerospace sector?
Yeah, I think the key is that to be more efficient, you have to work better with your partners, collaborate better, plug AI, plug IoT, get the data, as it was mentioned, and blockchain is basically a foundational piece of technology that enable all of that because it distributes data, because it digitizes processes. So blockchain by itself knows nothing. You have to teach it to teach the business to the blockchain, and that's the big work. But starting doing that, I think, is a key. And the other point is that for that side of digital transformation, I think it's key to understand that you cannot do that on your own. You have to do that with your partners, work together, share costs, share ideas, do maybe also work with some of your competitors even, right? And that's the way you can really get something that's going to be adopted in your ecosystem, which is the key. But that's also where all the benefits are. I think most of digital innovation that inside the four walls is available today. Where there is a green field, the blue ocean is in the ecosystem. So.
All right, Kiran, since you also work for a blockchain company, I would like to know your views on this.
Yes, I completely agree with Chris. And blockchain is there for a multi-party collaboration. So you have your suppliers, you have your customers, you have MROs, you have supplier, you have customer in the form of lessors. So everybody needs to be on the blockchain platform in order to get the maximum benefit of the blockchain. So as Chris pointed out, blockchain on its own cannot produce any data by itself. So the data has to come from the underlying systems, which each and every stakeholder in the value chain is already using. So blockchain is going to be a representation layer, and it is also going to help the industry collaborate in the form of right data being shared with the right person at the right time. So I would put it that way. And I have some interesting numbers to share on why should organizations really focus on blockchain technology. So as per a PwC report, which we went through, blockchain technology can actually lead to overall MRO cost reduction by almost 5%, which amounts to $3.5 billion. Then another market research firms stated that aviation blockchain market is expected to be around $1.3 billion by 2025. And the third point is, as per a leading research, as per a survey conducted by a leading research magazine, almost 86% of the aerospace and defense companies are expected to be on blockchain by 2021. So these are very compelling numbers, when it comes to blockchain as a technology, and, blockchain being embraced by the industry as a whole. There are a lot of advantages of blockchain. We can go on for a longer discussion, but I think this is where I would like to, say that, blockchain is the way forward as far as multi-party collaboration is concerned. And there are various business benefits, when it comes to reduction in cost in a multi-party collaborative environment. Then there can be savings as far as warranty and claims management is concerned. And also, as Rohit pointed out, opportunity to become maintenance from MRO to maintenance management service provider, and also provide maintenance as a service. So I think these are some of the key business benefits which we feel for as far as blockchain technology is concerned.
All right, Shane, there is a question directed at you. You mentioned that many technology revamps won't be large-scale investment into new systems like SAPs, etc., but layers on top of existing systems. So, however, adding layers can add a lot of complexity and issues in the system. In your mind, which key stakeholders should be involved to get the right and valuable output without overcomplicating the data that the business is generating? And also, what if there are major flaws in the underlying system? As the saying goes, garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely, I understand that completely. And I think following on, I'll answer that question, but it's going to seem a long route. But following on from the blockchain discussion, I think that the issue with blockchain is it's a collaborative tool, and you need to have many partners and many stakeholders in all of that. But the MRO industry historically has been very insular. And you find that people don't necessarily share all the data. And I've got various different examples of that. People having to sell data and buy data from each one of those systems. If we go back onto that question now, what we are discussing, and the way to actually put it, is a simplified system that allows the data extraction from the tool from the ERP system, whichever's in place at this moment in time, for an individual operator. That is also going to be linked into the customer, the airline operating the type of equipment that goes through. Once you've gathered both sets of data and put that all in, if you've got a simple system that doesn't give you anything more than that, what we're offering and what we're saying is, if there's a tool that maybe fits across the top of that was able to extract the data, digitize the data into task card management on the shop floor, asking a level more questions of both the system and the operator to bring it back in to give you a much more qualitative data process. So for a simple investment of a tool that lies across, you can get the data, you can do your predictive analysis as you need to do, you can get your management decisions much quicker, you can actually enhance the efficiencies on the shop floor through this transitional data process that we're actually delivering. So that gives you the ability as an individual shop to be able to do that. And it's a fairly simplistic tool. It doesn't necessarily change the way that you do your operation, because you can't change the ERP system. You've got other tools that you need to bring into that type of stuff. But it gives you a level of clarity on the data that you have. It gives you a more efficient tool to be able to run your shop. It will link into all of the other systems to be able to drive your blockchain, et cetera, but it won't give you any great difference in the way that you manage your operation, other than it will drive a level of efficiency through the digitization. And there are a number of shops out there that are still using paper task cards, et cetera. We will move away from all of that type of stuff. But the ERP system that they want to use doesn't give you that ability to do it at this moment in time. Some systems do, and I guess there are examples around the globe that we can actually talk about. But if you don't want to buy that type of stuff, there is an operational need for efficiency, and you can have a simple tool that runs across the top of all of that. Yes, in theory, it gives you a level of complexity, but you manage the complexity out of the system with using the proper tools to be able to do it. And if you then use the data to go back and do some more predictive analysis, working through, you can actually make your shop floor more efficient as well. And you give your better cost effectiveness to your customer, and you can deliver the data that you want on a real-time basis to the customer, all the way through on a dashboard system, on a communication system, in any way you want to do it. So yes, there is a level more complexity, but the interface of the tool makes that complexity go away. And you also manage the qualitative data in the system, because you're asking at the different level of questions, and you're able to deliver a much more efficient operation with a simple cost and a lovely little interface across a small tool without investing millions of dollars, pounds, rupees, or whatever currency we want to deal with into those types of systems. And it ties nicely into some of the blockchain entries as well.
Maybe, so if you don't mind, I would like to react on what was just said, and to echo and to what Shane, Kiran, and Chris just had. I think there is a all consensus that we do think that blockchain makes sense for the MRO. Of course, use case is key, and we can elaborate certainly later. But one of the things to get rid of the complexity and really to take the best of this technology, because at the end it's an enabler and a technology to serve a business purpose. Our view as well, at least at CITA, is really to look at that, how to leverage existing standards, because part of the complexity would be to reinvent the wheel and to really trash decades and the current way that people are doing business, but more to tweak and upgrade and bring onto this blockchain those current standards, which are really keys, especially if you have some small players which might not be willing to spend millions or whatever, but at least really to reuse the current way, the current standards live today in the industry, in the MRO. The second thing is to onboard the regulators, because we can have a wonderful IT tech business solutions, but if it's not blessed by the regulator in a way, or at least compliant with, you know, the ESA, the FAA of the world, that's not going to work, or at least it won't be adopted massively. And one of the paths that we are taking, or at least we're really a big fan, is to create alliance. And it's true that the most complicating things to do, because aligning ecosystem stakeholders who are united on an MRO process, from OEM, lessor, airlines, technology providers, and so freight forwarders as well for part transportation and so on. It's something that we are experimenting right now, which is fairly complex but extremely fruitful. And this multi-party collaborations is something that we have to manage, focusing on specific use case. And that's something which is really key. Complex as well in a way that people are coming from different backgrounds, but you need to find a story, you need to find benefits for each and individual companies, because an OEM has different interests than an airline and so on, as you know, but as well a collective benefit with this alliance. And we now, after a year working on this area, we really think that this is a secret sauce to really take the best of the blockchain technology to significantly enhance the MRO processes.
Wow, that's true.
And
Okay,
just,
I have please.
Yeah.
Continue, Kiran. Yeah.
Swati, just to add to Arnaud, I think the question, I address the question, when you talk about blockchain, we are actually, doing away with point-to-point EDI integration. So in an otherwise world, if without blockchain technology, if two systems or two companies have to talk to each other, then they have to build a point-to-point integration between each of the systems. And when it comes to multi-party collaboration, then you have one is to many and many is to many combinations. So blockchain actually takes away all these complexities of the system, and it gives a uniform platform for everybody to connect onto. And once the plugins are built, these plugins can be reused, differently by different ERP systems. So the plugin built, so the building of plugin is just one time, and it can be reused based on similar customers coming with similar ERP systems. And as pointed out, Even people with MROs with who don't have any systems currently, they can also take advantage of blockchain by the underlying technologies and benefits it brings through. So I just wanted to add that.
Yes, Rohit, you're heard, yeah.
Hi. I mean, all the panelists are more technologically advanced than I am, that's for sure. But as an airline and as a person who's sort of looked at these investments over the last couple of years, what we see is the most important feature for us as a blockchain is the fact that within the aviation ecosystem, trust is one of the most important factors, which needs to be, so you need to record and then you need to verify. So these are the two most important items when you look at maintenance by itself. And this verification is both at an individual level as well as at a regulatory level. So I think these two areas are one of the key drivers of what could really make or what will continue to drive the whole blockchain or AI, data analytics kind of investments. One of the things that I feel more than really just from a blockchain. So for the way I look at it is blockchain is more of a place where any kind of an information that is being there, which requires the trust of multiple parties, be it an engineer's logbook, be it the modification that has been carried out on an aircraft, or any of these documents. These are sort of getting checked into the whole system. The largest value, obviously, in terms of blockchain, if I put a dollar value to it, it is the engines, because of the value of a lot of parts which go into the engine and the traceability on the engine parts that you require. The other most important part, I think, where really the investment is really going to go is going to be the AI and data analytics part. Because one of the things that we are seeing is OEMs have realized the power of this data and have already made investments in large data analytics. So you have Airbus Skywise programs, you have Boeing programs, which are constantly looking at this data from the aircraft, from the engine, which is being analyzed to identify and better be able to predict, the maintenance actions. I think AI will continue to be an area of investment. Data analytics will continue to be an area of investment because from a maintenance cost perspective, 70% of the investment in technology is going to be to better predict and prevent the maintenance event from happening. And the 30% is going to be to make that maintenance, the cost benefits or more efficient maintenance event handling. So you have two parts in the whole. One is before the maintenance event occurs, after the maintenance event has occurred. 70% of the investment is going to be driven towards the pre-maintenance event. How do I predict? How do I prevent the maintenance event from occurring, both on cost and other parameters? And the remaining 30% would go on the other side. So that's the way I look at it. And there are going to be a bunch of technologies like individual sort of apps on your cell phone, which is just going to be adding up into your base operating system or base ERP system, which is sitting there, whose primary job is just data collection.
So like you mentioned, artificial intelligence. So I have a very interesting question coming in on that. AI is valid when you have large amount of data on a long period of time, considering all the noise parameters. But today, AI blockchain is at the start of the journey yet, and we don't master it. So don't you think that this COVID-19 noise will completely disturb the predictive analysis? This question is coming from Phil.
Oh, sorry.
No, continue. Yeah, please.
I can maybe answer some of that question if that's good. Artificial intelligence is a great word. It's more about machine learning and understanding where we're going and how we're going to be able to do all of this. The predictive analysis that Rohit was talking about is phenomenally important. And it's how do you get that data and how do you manage that? And there's some discussion about preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, and predictive analysis of all of that type of stuff. And the way that and again, it sounds like I'm an advertising campaign, or I really actually should pay Rohit to be an advertising manager for me, because some of the stuff he was just speaking about is right into our ballpark. And what the data that we're actually driving to be able to give you the predictive analysis is also part of the foundational tools for your artificial intelligence or your machine learning, in how you make the next phase even more efficient, how you take all of that data, you can do the non-recurring defects on a C check or a D check. You can actually start to predict those a lot better. Once you've done that, you put the system in place and you start gathering a lot more intelligence. And then we're driving that into machine learning and to your artificial intelligence. So I think that I think the COVID problem is going to kick a lot of this a lot farther forward quickly. And people are going to actually more understand what they can actually get out of the data they've got. And I think Rohit's comment about the OEMs and coming from an OEM background, I understand their demand and their delivery of controlling a lot more of this MRO marketplace with their own data is going to be great in some instances, but it's going to be a nightmare in others. And if you take a simple example, Rolls-Royce are very much controlling all of the maintenance of their engines, managing an awful lot of their data. But to get that engine leasing company to accept the Rolls-Royce engines is much, much, much more difficult in the second life of the aircraft, because they've got no way of actually unpicking the data, unpicking the way that those things are managed. So I think there's going to be a level more kickback against some of the OEM control, because it doesn't necessarily give the market freedom to be able to be cost effective and competitive going forward, because they would want to rely on their ownership of the data. The MROs now will have a level of more data at their fingertips that they haven't actually understood before now. And the operators fit somewhere in between all of that. So there's an opportunity now through the COVID to actually focus our attentions on actually managing data and understanding what that data is going to be able to give us.
If I may add on that, so one of the challenges is that there was reference to an initiative for marvellous, and is about collecting the data and having the right data, right? That's valid and that's for sure actionable. And I think that's where that work on digitizing these processes and using smart contracts to make them double checked by everybody is providing something that's not existing today. Because I'm always thinking, if it was about sharing data, you would put it on the Google Drive, you would inject it somewhere, and you would get the essence of it. But it's not easy, right? The data is not easily collected. And usually the data that's really meaningful is not existing, because it's a data that is at the process level, at the ecosystem level. I mean, if you're an OEM and you want to do the configuration of an engine before it's getting in your shop, not to have to unmount the engine and save these 2 days, it's not something you can do so easily. So this digital transformation doesn't sound like just putting a Google Drive there and there. There is something in the middle. And it was the point of Kiran that one of the problems is today everything is point to point. So data transit like an SMS, like a text message. And if you are on one hand at the beginning or at the end, you don't get the data. So how do you get that data? And how do you can reconcile it automatically, that you can trust it and effectively feed your tools, feed your workforce with actionable data? And I think that's where blockchain is the right way to see blockchain is that way. To be the server, the transporter of the data, the ability to verify that data, that beautiful analytics tool or business apps can leverage it. That's and it's not the problem of just MRO. It's supply chain has the same, finance has the same, healthcare has the same. It's a step.
I would just like to add to this point. And I'll try to answer in two ways. Number one, in terms of what exactly Chris just said, which is so correct in terms of, where is this data sitting? This data is in various formats, in quantitative formats and qualitative formats, which is available across the whole action that has taken place on the aircraft. And what happens is, legally, the origin of the data, which is, let's say, and I'm trying to be very simple here. If there is a fault that has occurred on an aircraft or a component, the origin of that fault which has occurred on a component, that data that the fault has occurred, that data belongs to the aircraft operator. But once this data is transferred or captured into a database which belongs to, let's say, an OEM today, which is either their Skywise through an ACARS or their ECAMs, to that example, where ECAMs are able to transfer the data back, then in that scenario, once the data is transferred, you do not, legally, might be, you do not have the full right on that data. So the question is how airlines or MROs can intervene in between and create a trustable mechanism where this data does originate from you, but between the origination point and between the transfer point, you're able to extract the information from this data. So capture the data, make sense of the data, then transform the data into a knowledge, and then take it forward. So all these actions have to happen between the time that the data is transmitted and the data is handed over, to another part. So it is ERP systems are currently playing a role. ERP, I won't say it captures 100% of the data, because you still have only quantitative information that is recorded. But you need to go back right to the aircraft to be able to get that data in. And I think that's where the whole focus of investment, even OEMs and MROs would need to look at if they really want to create sort of the next level of maintenance management services.
And if I may, Rohit, to go to your direction, that's where we do believe that if we're in a world when you have all those tons of data, and we'll have even more coming from IoT, and we know Rolls-Royce are especially strong in that. That's why we do see this evolution coming, I would say, jointly. So it will be not one technology against another. Those data coming from the multiple systems will be managed by blockchain, automated by AI, and so on. And I can't, I would say, I don't want to repeat again, but that's where we do see that one of the workaround on the concern you are raising, but, oh, I'm owner of my data and what's happening next? The strategy on going through a group of alliance or for key members who agree to say, okay, if I want to optimize the MRO process with my partners, my selected pool of partners, this is the data I'm willing to share. This is the data I will get in return, and the other will do the same in a gentleman agreement orchestrated around a strong governance, because this is really key. Otherwise, spontaneously, and we know that historically, well, OEM, airline, lessors, no one wants to really share openly, and that's normal. Huh? So that's why we do believe that the power of alliance, consortium, we see in other industry, by the way, not only MRO, but applied to MRO would be really a great way, a great forum where people with intelligence in a smart way, and especially in this post-COVID-19 where people are really suffering hard, might be as well one of the benefits, if there is, of the COVID-19 to incentivize stakeholders to sit on the table and say, okay, now what do we do to enhance collectively the processes and start to see what kind of data we're willing to share.
Now, since we are at this problem of data, what do you think about data theft? Data theft has always been an issue since since forever. So do you think there will be a technology or something, some hacker-proof kind of a thing coming in future? Do you see anything like that coming in?
I think that I think the cloud technology, the security that's in there around a lot of the cloud and the databases and things like that, the level of security is a lot better than it ever was. Whether you're going to get 100% security, I think it depends on how desperate the person is that wants your data and is going to take that data one way or the other, and how much he's prepared to spend on doing that type of stuff is always going to be an issue. But, you know, we can look at the way that you cloud and manage the cloud, where your data is being stored or your data storage system. And that there are systems now, and I've used systems that are military standard, used by NASA. And if you go to some of the Google systems, they're all NASA. It's always going to be a nightmare question, and everybody will have doubts, and you can have to work out the best way that you can to get the security to give the constant to your customer.
Yeah, agreed. It's always going to be a question as to how much you can invest in protection of your data. Okay, I have one very interesting question coming in. It's again from Girish Deshmukh. He's asking how many regulators around the world accept digitized data in place of hard copies, and what is the current scenario? Yeah, who would like to answer this? Anyone? Rohit, yes.
Let me try and take a first shot at it since I'm from an airline. I think we are seeing an growing acceptance level from regulators. I wouldn't say that it has probably reached a point where it can be completely sort of eradicated. But I mean, see, we saw ERP systems which took certain time, and if I look at within the Indian scenario for Girish, I mean, we saw DGCA finally moving up at some point of time and saying, okay, fine, you know, ERP systems data would be sort of mandatory and we can use that. I think it is about the ability to really, for someone to really get one case done and prove it to DGCA as of now, or civil aviation regulator. I think from their perspective, as long as they're able to identify that that this blockchain mechanism or digitalized information, which is on a, let's say, a blockchain platform, is more secured and accurate, the more acceptance it will start getting. And it is sort of a chain of event, you know. I mean, I'm sure, you know, once the FAAs and the EASA start accepting it, it would just then become a sort of a chain to follow. So unfortunately, I mean, I understand your point of view. As an airline also, you know, we do face these kind of questions, but then we have to sort of take a call and say, and that's exactly what I said previously, that if you are looking at this investment as trying to say that if I make an investment of $100, is the customer going to give me $100 back? Which is what happens if you're trying to say that, okay, why should I invest? Because the regulator might not accept. That is a value-driven approach. But when you invest for sustainability, knowing that it is going to be the norm tomorrow and I need to be prepared for it from today, so that I can really execute it at the time when it is required, I think that is where the real difference will lie in. Handling, I mean, imagine one of the biggest challenges that today the lessors have is that they are not able to go and visit the, sit inside an airline office and go through the documentation of the full aircraft at the time of lease redelivery. But if you are as an MRO have this investment and have the ability of providing all this data in some form of way back to the lessor, why wouldn't they want to be a part of it? So it is more from that perspective, I would say, rather than, you know, yeah, I mean, regulators, well, they're regulators. That's why they're regulators. Goods and bads of it. You can't help it.
If I may add on that, the regulators recognize standards that are from ATA, and ATA for a long time as a standard, for instance, to digitize a certificate of airworthiness. So you don't need blockchain to do that. You just need good old digital signatures. And I think all regulators would accept that because it's enforceable, meaning if you sign it with your digital key, it's enforceable. So it's not a problem about regulators accepting that. It is a problem of the ecosystem being able to handle end-to-end the digitized data. And that's where there is a lot of people that cannot just only process today paper, and that's what's taking all the thing down. But there is some standards are there, and the regulators take that. There is still some area of work on record management, and there is new standard around spec 2500, I think, that are coming. But that's not the limiting factor. The limiting factor is the ability of people to handle the digitized data.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, we'll take one quick question. It's from Air Marshal Sukhchand Singh. He's asking us, will we see OEM dominated and controlled MRO as the norm in the post-COVID-19 phase because of their overarching control on the tier 2 and ability to invest in newer technologies to be competitive? So, yes, would like to take this. Yeah, Rohit, please.
Very interesting question. And I wouldn't be surprised if I actually see a good drive from the OEMs to control the MRO business. The only difference I find is, or at least what we see or we foresee, that it is not going to be driven by the fact of technology investment. It is going to be driven by the fact that the OEMs have realized the impact, or over the past years have already realized that selling engines or selling aircraft parts really don't make money. And if you look at the life cycle cost, maintaining an engine or maintaining a part generally generates 3 times the revenue of the is 3x the times of the revenue that it generates as compared to the selling of the part. So a lot of OEMs are happy to join hands through structured JVs in a lot of geographical regions, primarily because they want to offer these services in addition as a part of selling the aircraft. You have Airbus, which is very effectively coming in with their, sort of an agreement, which is like it's like a par by the hour kind of an agreement, which takes care of the full fleet. So it is primarily not driven by technology investment. It is being driven by their diversification of their revenue from a risk perspective, and as well as to sort of be able to compete as a one-stop shop rather than just sell the aircraft and then forget about it, because that's everyone is pushing every OEM down today at this point of time. Everyone thinks he's a Michael O'Leary to stand up and say, I want the aircraft free of cost. So it doesn't happen. So I think that kind of a situation is what is driving the force from OEMs to really go in and try and form these kind of JVs.
Maybe I can add a little bit more to that, a bit more color into that. As I said before, my background is from OEMs. I can see Rohit smiling there. So I had a level of understanding of the change in the business model at Airbus, and to try and change the revenue generation from the manufacturing process into the aftermarket process was a big challenge for Airbus. They've got the tools of Skywise, as you say, but they don't necessarily have the infrastructure to do the component or the airframe or the engine maintenance themselves. And if you look at some of the contracts they've signed, A350 maintenance in Hong Kong is owned by an airline, and it's subcontracted 98% through to the MRO shop that's in Hong Kong as well, and in some areas in China. But what they try to get is the control and management and ownership of the data that will allow them to be able to control where the maintenance is done, how the maintenance is done, what the maintenance is, etc. So I think there will be a kind of a drive by those guys to be able to do it, and they will be very secure in the new fleets, the A350, the A380, maybe on the A320neo, but their challenge is going to be, how do they control, manage the data for the likes of an A320 fleet, and a significant loss for them on their PBH contract was that Boeing now have a PBH contract with British Airways to manage all of the A320 fleets. So there's going to be a level of confusion. There's going to be a level of battle between the OEMs. The MROs need to be able to have an independent way of collecting their data, owning their data, managing their data, to be able to give them the way forward to actually operate their business. And just as an aside, we've got a project underway at this moment in time where an airline maintenance shop has 8 years of paper records, and it gives them the data that they would want. It's not gone to Airbus, it's not gone to Boeing, it's just sitting in a box in the corner of the hangar of 8 years of paper. And they want to be able to bring that out and find and manage that and do that data analysis on it all. So there's a way now forward with all of the efficient tools that we have at our disposal to be able to get the historic data, to be able to drive our way forward through this business and make sure that the OEMs have a part to play, but the independent MROs have an ability to be able to be participative and to be able to drive the customer satisfaction, the efficiencies in there, and to reduce a hell of a lot of risk. So
see, Shane, I would like to add here, there's this question also relevant to this coming from Mr. Vinod Kumar Shukla from GoAir. In this environment after COVID-19, where MROs are basically going to have to struggle to survive, and they are going to face problems with excess manpower, and how are they going to find the cash flow, the investment in technology? Will that be the priority?
I think that the technology will give them the ability to be able to manage their manpower more effectively, more efficiently. It will give them the ability to be able to turn the aircraft around quicker. It will give them the ability to give real-time information to the operator of that aircraft at a relatively low cost compared with some of the machine tools that are out there at this moment. The technology today is a lot lower costing than it was 3 years ago, let alone 5 or 10 years ago. And I think there's a realization that if you don't have some of this technology to manage your data, to be able to give you an efficient level of control, you are going to have a papered society with an awful lot of technicians that can't get within 2 meters of each other. How do you manage that without having some level of technology in place to be able to manage that better and manage that more effectively and efficiently, and at the same time gather the data to make the next aircraft input much more predictable? And in 5 years' time, you will have a huge amount of predictable data that's going to give you. And that's if you start off with a small operator with 1 aircraft a day. That's a lot of data on 1 aircraft, but you've got a lot of historic data that's there that is yours, you can manage it, and it's actually effectively drawing that out and using it in to make your efficient levels of business. And the return on investment is a lot quicker with some of the tools and equipment that's out there today than it ever was before.
So basically you're saying technology is going to be a prerequisite for efficiency. Yes, Rohit, yes.
See, I mean, I completely agree with Shane. Just want to add a couple of points, and that is how this is one thing I feel is going to be the differentiator between a successful MRO post-COVID versus a run-of-the-mill MRO. The difference is this: when you look at organizations, any organization which goes through a massive situation like what we are having in COVID, and you have manpower which is excess, you have 2 ways of handling it. Either one, you lay off the excess manpower, but the better companies are those, and as Shane said, MROs can utilize these. The better companies are those who are able to take these resources and generate value internally within the organization. It's very easy to lay off people, but if I know that my manpower requirement is now excess, those manpower still has what in MRO terms or in maintenance I would call as experience, which is there is an experience-based knowledge which those engineers, technicians, planners have sitting right there. The MRO needs to identify how to use them in setting up, giving them a new platform, giving them the backend that requires from a technology perspective, data scientists, and harness this knowledge that they have in creating value or creating the new solutions. Because each and every person who's sitting there is really has some value. The question is the airlines or MROs who generally prefer to just lay off people, which is an easier fix, are sort of never able to achieve what the other successful MROs are able to achieve. So they use the opportunity of these people who are excess take them in, harness their knowledge, give them the tools, give them the manpower that is required to harness their knowledge into some kind of a, I would say, information or experiential information, and then use that to better your business. I mean, that's the way I would look at it.
Right. Perfect. So I'm going to throw in a last question, and I would like closing comments from everyone on this question. So the post-COVID-19 phase, let's call it aviation 2.0. This was a phrase coined by one of my speakers in the previous webinars. Now this aviation 2.0 will completely change the way we travel. Everyone is saying that, and we are seeing that it is going to change the way we are going to travel by air, be it by any means of transport. So how will technology help in easing our way in maintaining our aircraft? I'll start with Kiran.
I think, as Rohit pointed out, technology is required for sustenance. I mean, that is a very, very powerful statement which Rohit has made, and I couldn't agree more on that. So this is the way which organizations need to go further. They should see technology as a sustenance, and digital transformation and techniques, techniques like artificial intelligence, blockchain technology. I mean, these are the two driving factors as far as optimization of maintenance process is concerned. And I think these are the two main technologies, apart from the other supporting ones like robotics, IoTs, and others. So AI and blockchain, I think, is going to go hand in hand as far as future of MRO is concerned. And this is where the industry needs to invest, and this is where the industry needs to focus on, primarily in order to achieve efficiencies, process efficiencies within the organization and also across the organization.
Yes, Chris, your take on this.
Yeah, there is the short-term impact like that. And I really think that the companies that will make the hard choice, not lay off people, trying to reuse them, not cut all innovation, but try still to protect strategic project, will get out much stronger. And the ones that don't do that may have to face companies that are more competitive than they are today. So it's really a competitive thing at the end. If you can operate faster, if you can operate better, provide better SLA, better service to your customers, you're going to win business. And if you didn't do that transformation, you may have even more tough time position after. And that's true in many industries, in fact, I think.
Yes, Arnold.
No, of course, I can't agree more on what has been said, especially before I came into the aviation business. I came from a B2C, from telco, so totally different area. And I can witness that the time it takes to, to get into the aero, the aviation space, the learning, even the vocabulary, the acronym, the mindset, it's something that if you get rid of people, it's really more complicated than to hire back and train them. So definitely. But back to your question. I mean, about technology, yes, as we said, for us, we really see convergence of technology will make sense. Just to go parallel on MRO, so we see cargo evolving. Cargo was not really, crazy dynamic area, and we see that the COVID is really pushing them to make innovation and to make things better, faster, cheaper. And on the passenger side, we do see already some kind of maybe emergency solution technologies more for passenger to to have contactless kiosk and area, and making sure that the staff at the airport will be protected enough to maintain a safe place at the airport. So, but in the long run, we really think that the combination of those tech would make, and the collaboration, and hopefully, and we are totally sure that blockchain will play a role there, would make the overall process better, and for the MRO specifically.
Yes, Rohit, your final comments on this.
I think my final comments are technology is going to be the backbone of innovation. And MROs need to really start innovating, not in the way of creating a new product, but you just start, you need to sort of just go back and say, how do I use technology to innovate what I do and how I do? I mean, even if you just fix on these two things from a customer perspective, it will have a huge impact in how it is driving innovation. I mean, yes, you are performing. If someone asks me, I always say that, you know, in today's world, an MRO in the future, an MRO is going to be a sort of a large urban clap or a tasked kind of company where everything is digital. I mean, I don't need it. I mean, I have on-demand AME when I need it. AMEs bid for the kind of work they want to do. Aircraft comes in at any given point of time. So that kind of a platform is what the MRO business is going to be. I mean, we need to really break the borders of doing the MRO business. It needs to become a borderless maintenance service. It doesn't matter whether I'm using hangar A or hangar B, one of Lufthansa or one of SR Techniques. I'm one single provider. It doesn't matter whom I'm using it. So that kind of innovation is really is what I would really wish for going forward in MRO. I mean, that's the way I look at that vision of technology and innovation in MRO. So yeah.
Wow, breaking borders for innovation, like amazing. Yes, Shane, your closing comments. Your mic is mute. Mic is mute.
I can talk great technology. I can't always use simple technology. I think that we have to remember in the MRO business that there is a new world coming, and the new world is about the type of aircraft that are going to be there. But in the intervening period, we have old aircraft. You know, the A320 has been around 25, 30 years. The 737's been around the same sort of age. So doing the maintenance on those aircraft, you have to change the way you do it. You have to become much more effective. You have to become much more efficient in the way you actually do that. So aviation 2.0 is going to be actually, the aircraft's not going to change that much. The types of processes you're doing on the aircraft is not going to change that much. It's the tools and equipment that you as an organization have to be able to drive efficiencies, to be able to change the way that you do your business, to be able to predict the way that the aircraft's coming in, and to be able to drive the information in a real-time basis through that supply to the customer. So I think that the technology is going to change the way that we operate, is going to change the way that we maintain aircraft. The maintenance of an aluminium sheet is not going to change that much. You can't do that much differently on that type of stuff. It's how you use your people, it's how you use your resources, it's how you use your facility, and how you communicate with the customer.
Absolutely true. Technology today will play a huge role in not just helping the revival of aerospace sector, but in also making many of the MROs technologically more driven. Now, many countries across the world have slowly started lifting the lockdown, and they are inching towards a very slow recovery process. But the complete recovery for MRO sector, I feel, is going to be very slow and painful. But let's all of us have faith, hope, and prayer for a faster and a speedier recovery from this crisis. On this note, I will thank all my speakers for taking their valuable time out for all of us and participating in this wonderful discussion. Also, a special thank you to all the wonderful participants who were there. This webinar wouldn't have been possible without the active participation of our audience. Also, a note of thanks to our organizers, MRO Business Today. On this note, I'll take your leave for today. I'll keep you updated on the date and time for the next webinar very soon. Till then, stay safe and stay healthy. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, everybody.
Pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Arnaud. Bye-bye.